So, frequently, when you buy a 5 pack or 10 pack of cars, there's always one or two you really have no interest in. This Chevy Silverado was one, recently acquired by my son and I. So, he challenged me to make something cool out of it. And so, after about 2 minutes of thought, I just started cutting things up and putting things together. At this stage in the game, what you're seeing, I had no idea what I was actually going to build. Some of the things that happen, I didn't know what I was doing until I was doing them. But I cut the tracks off of some weird crane thing we had from some box of toys. Widened it out a little bit with some styrene rod here, a little dry mock-up of how it should stand. Not quite like that, but I made leaf springs for the front suspension, like this. 3 little styrene rods for each spring, one shorter than the next, stacked on top of each other to give the leaf spring effect. I also covered up the back wheel wells of the truck with some tin roofing from some HO roofing stuff. Here's a little piece of it, as you can see. I turned the corners over so it fits up in there tight and glued it in. After a couple of seconds, I cut off the tin with some scissors. Now I glued those leaf springs I made in right against the leaf springs that were in the casting that a truck like this doesn't even have anymore, but here we go. So now I make the mounts for the front axles. I cut holes in a piece of styrene and then cut them off really short like this, so they kind of look like little turnbuckle mount things that are on a front axle, or a leaf sprung axle, suspended axle. The holes are plenty big for the axles, and they do spin, which is pointless because the tracks in the back do not roll, so this is not a rolling car. I had to build up between those styrene rods to get the back end stance right. It's going to be about like that. Now I'm building the part that I had no intention of making when I started, but I got this far and thought, this thing, what's the point of this half-track vehicle in the first place? So the only reason you would have such a heavy-duty small vehicle would be to carry something extremely heavy, and so I figured a very large gun might be appropriate for this. I guess it's turning into like a Gaslands, Wasteland, Death Race, whatever kind of post-apocalyptic car war situation you could think of. Would be, I would imagine, some pretty enormous gun that a vehicle of this size probably couldn't handle, but I made some flat spots on the gun and on the styrene rod that's on the pivot point. Hit it with some accelerant so I can keep working. Figure out where I'm going to mount it here. I've painted all those parts now, just with black Testors primer in a rattle can. You see me gluing this truck together and it will not stay together, and I realize that when I weather it, it's better to weather it in 2 pieces so I can get to all the spots. There I'm throwing accelerant to keep the gun down. A little time has passed. And now, see where we stand. It still looks a little weird. How does this gun work? What does it do? It's just some weird thing. It doesn't really make sense. Do some brainstorming. In the same box that we got at some auction or flea market that had a bunch of Hot Wheels was the crane part for the tracks and this weird scuba tank that's way out of scale, but this part could be used as some weird control system for some weird, maybe it's a flame throwing gun of some sort, or who knows. And the little wire I'll shove in the back after I make some mounting stuff for that, as you will see, again with the accelerant and the super glue. Let that dry some. Now you can see I've got the wire in the back of the gun, kind of checking it out. Since I left the windshield out, and this thing would need armored plating over the windshield anyway, if you're going to have a gun like this, you can't just be exposed to whatever counterattack you have. So I cut out some metal grating stuff again from HO Modeling Detail Supplies. Glue that all in place, and the side windows I did as well. Now you can see the little back of the gun where I've made a styrene mount that the wire hose thing is now permanently attached to, but the gun will still move up and down. I'm going to separate the two halves so that I can now weather it with these weathering things I just got from the Amazon people. Brought them to my house moments before I did this, so I figured, why don't I finish the vehicle out only in these. I hadn't decided how I would paint it, and now I've decided all I'm going to do is weather it up with these. So here we go.